The thought of explaining hidradenitis suppurativa, like, oh, hey, I have terrible scars and like possibly like oozing abscesses on my body to a new person is terrifying. As someone who's been married, divorced, dated, and now in the best relationship of my life, let me give you my tips. I'm an HS elder. I will be 40 in 6 months, but I made all the mistakes in my 20s because I've had hidradenitis suppurativa since I was 13. And not only did I have hidradenitis suppurativa when I was 13 years old, I was also like a larger bodied person. I still am, but I was definitely like a larger bodied teenager and youth in Miami, of all places. So I had a lot of things contributing to low self-esteem and to just feelings of unworthiness and feeling unattractive, especially in a city where everyone was like half naked, hairless, tan, and gorgeous. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I'm first generation American. My parents came from Cuba in like 1980 and I was born in 85. So being the child of immigrants was interesting because there's just a lot of experiences which I think are unique to the children of immigrants. There was a big emphasis on, you have to hustle, you have to work. My parents didn't really understand like the social structures here. So there wasn't a lot of like support. My mom also got married really young. She got married at 20. Had my sister and I like, at 21, 22. So it was hard to navigate dating because I didn't really have like a role model in that sense. My mom didn't have a lot of like social experiences because she grew up in communism. So her childhood was like this traumatic thing and she had like no advice to give in that regard. And my older sister was gorgeous and looked like a model. Was like the most popular girl at school and had the perfect body and perfect skin. So she was no help as well. I was just like, oh, I'm the only person in my family who looks like this and who's dealing with this condition and who's going through this experience. So I felt completely isolated, which I'm sure a lot of you do too. So in my 20s, what I did, which I don't recommend anyone doing, is I pushed people away. Like I'd go to parties, even as a teenager, like I'd go to parties, like I'd like hook up, I would definitely consume alcohol till I could no longer I no longer cared enough if someone saw something. And then I would, usually have someone that I had a crush on or whatever. But if that person later would be like, oh, I really like you, let's go on a date, I'd be like, no, because I was like terrified that they saw me during the daytime or when we were sober, that they would then notice about my skin, which sucked because like then these people would go on and like go out with other people and I'd be like sad about it. But I had this very just, again, poor self-esteem led to poor choices. So don't do that. But what I did learn from those experiences and the way I did handle my youth, which again, I was kind of a hoe, is that nobody cares. They're not going to care when you're naked in front of them. Just saying. Seriously. I maybe had like one or two partners be like, what's that? And back then I didn't even have the language to like explain it because I didn't really understand it. Back then we were still going with the whole like sweat gland issue, which it's not what it is. Hidradenitis suppurativa is not a sweat gland issue. Fast forward to meeting the person who would become my husband of 12 years or 10 years. We were together 12 years, married 10. And we were together for 3 months before we were intimate. And I remember telling them like ahead of time, being like, I showed them my inner thighs, which was my stage 3. And I said, hey, I have this skin condition and it can hurt sometimes. And, it's not contagious or anything. I've had it since I was little, but I just wanted to let you know. And he's like, I could care less. He's like, look, I have keloid scars here. He's like, everyone's got skin stuff. Like, you're beautiful. I don't care. And we were married for a long time and he wasn't, he never made me feel gross because of my HS. And when it got worse when I was postpartum, he supported me through that. And was as helpful as he could be. I still, I think, hid a lot of it from him instead of like having him help me with my HS care, which I wish I had involved him more so I didn't feel more so alone in dealing with that. But again, I still wasn't there mentally and I still hadn't really taken the time to understand what was happening to my body. At that point in my life, I was still very much like, woe is me. I have no idea what is happening. And I'm just like a victim of circumstances here. I felt very out of control and that mindset was very detrimental to my mental health. But while I was married to Justin, I did get into remission. Being married to him, he was a very stable person and very organized. And so it allowed for me to have a very stable environment to create routines and habits, which historically speaking, I would have never been like a habit person. But with him, I created habits and routines and that really supported me when I started to change my diet and started working out. I started meditating and taking care of myself. And he also didn't care when I started doing the elimination diet and cooking differently for the family. He was like, I'll eat whatever you make, baby, which was nice. So through that 2 years of our life after postpartum, after our son was born, and then I got into remission. And of course, he was just happy that I was no longer in pain. But again, scars under my boobs, under my armpit, inner thigh, butt, groin area. And I was married, but nothing new. Then fast forward to 2001. And we broke up. Very amicable divorce. And it was terrifying to be like, I'm in a relationship with someone who already knows all these things about me. This part is really important because just because you have hidradenitis suppurativa, just because you have scars on your body, just because you have flares, doesn't mean that you have to settle. I wasn't in a bad relationship. Justin and I just had no like passion, no zing, no, we were really good friends and partners and parents, but we hadn't been like in love in a long time. We loved each other, but we hadn't been in love. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 37, 38, and like I don't want to spend the rest of my life kind of in this, like I want more. And I feel like we should both him and I deserve more, and we shouldn't wait, any longer. Why not just take advantage while we're young? So did the very scary thing of like, doing that, and the terrifying thing of like breaking up my family and what am I doing? And oh my God, now I have to date again. And I have to explain to people who may see me naked what's going on underneath, And I'm not gonna lie. Initially, there were some old feelings from my 20s coming back up, and then the insecurities, and I had to have a like, girl, that's not who you are anymore. You know who you are. You're badass. You're worth it. Like, you're beautiful despite, with your scars. Like, your HS doesn't make you less attractive. And so I went out into the dating pool of Hawaii, and I went on some dates. And I made it a point to bring up HS on my first dates. I know. But I had this kind of like, I'm too old to compromise. People need to know what's coming, take it or leave it. And it was a really interesting exercise, and I was really confident about it. Like, what do you do for a living? Well, I've written 2 good cookbooks. I'm a best-selling cookbook author. I have a food blog. I create content to help people manage chronic illness because I have chronic illness. Like, oh, really? Yeah, you look great. No, I know. I have it. I'm really have it well managed. I'm in remission, but like, I have the skin condition is called Hidradenitis Suppurativa, and I've had it since I was 13, and it's really painful, and it can be really debilitating, and it's left like a lot of scars, and it can just be really hard to deal with. So I help people, manage that. And they're like, oh, no way. And I'm like, yeah. If you're so lucky to see me naked, or if we get there, you'll notice I have scar cover up tattoos on my body, and like I can maybe show them this one. And you'll might see some scars, and they're like, oh, okay. Like, that's kind of badass. And again, no negative responses there from, people when I had those conversations. I did meet somebody, and we had a really passionate, albeit probably it's what I needed at the moment, I think, or I thought I needed at the moment, because he came in love bombing and hard because he was a narcissist. But at the moment, coming from my kind of unpassionate marriage, I needed that like whirlwind relationship. But then I realized like, this person's kind of toxic. I need something healthy and stable. So packed up my whole life and my kid and moved from Hawaii back home to Miami, which was the anniversary of that move is now. It's a little bit stressful and traumatizing, actually. There were some details there which I'm not disclosing, but anyways, came home a year ago, and in February of this 2024, I met my current boyfriend, who we're moving in together next month. And this man is fine, successful, obsessed with me. I get princess treatment. And he's, of course, same thing, aware of all things. And his response is just, he wants to take care of me and make sure I'm not stressed out so I can stay healthy. Literally. That's how when I'm cooking too much or really stressed or really crazy with work, he's like, baby, he's like, let me take care of you so you don't have to run around stressed. So moral of the story is, as I learned to love myself the most, I then found someone who saw me through those same eyes. You know what I'm saying? So the best relationship that you can have is with yourself, my love.